are some of your hot takes in negotiations?
I got a good one for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Interesting.
This is where we disagree, but that's so interesting. If you have a few more minutes, we'd love to debate this point. You're operating in the blind by putting in the first anchor. I am not afraid of anchoring at all because you can just maneuver your way out of it.
I hear this quote way more often than I would like to hear it, and that's, you had a good negotiation when both parties feel a little bit unhappy.
Oh, I hate to hear that. It should be when both sides feel happier than the company would be. Yeah.
So we knock them all out and put microchips in the back of their
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we do too.
It's a new technology.
It's amazing.
Super effective. Yeah.
How often do employers give some of your clients an offer that blows them away?
I mean, a lot of our clients apply to Anthropic and OpenAI, so I'm not gonna lie, it's often. Hello.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power. And we are very excited today to have Mark Mirra joining us for the pod.
Yes, and Truffle here.
And
She'll
Truffle.
be running around.
Yeah, she's a cameo guest every now and then.
Yes.
And Mark is the co-founder of Aligned Negotiation.
That's a great name.
Yeah. The first question I had for you was, how did you decide to choose singular negotiation or not plural negotiations?
We were struggling with that. But we'll turn it over to you to walk us through your bio and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a lot of time on the name because our mission at the end of the day is to rebrand negotiation. Instead of beating each other's heads in, you want to get aligned. That's going to be the key. So I'm Mark Mirra. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aligned. Been in the industry now for about 15 years. Worked all across the world in tons and tons of different organizations and industries, specifically focused on negotiation training, coaching, and consulting. I'm passionate about communication. I'm also a bit of a nerd. So outside of the world of negotiation, I'm a big anime and video games guy, a little astrophysics too, which is not too bad. But purpose-driven work, I love helping people communicate through conflict. And there is no better skill set that everybody in the world needs to know other than negotiation. So super pumped for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. How did you get into it? And I was looking through your LinkedIn. You've done negotiations at previous jobs. How did you get into it? And then what do you do in your company? Because we do negotiations for business deals and job offers. Do you focus on a particular niche?
Yeah, so I'll start with the how did we get here today? And it starts with failing calc in college because I'm not a numbers guy. And I was very upset that I have to do calculus and not use a calculator. So I was going to go into the business school.
I have a degree in math.
Yeah, not me.
Total math nerd.
You are my antithesis in this conversation. So I'm not a numbers guy. I very much wanted to go into the business school, the University of Maryland. I was passionate about it, but failed calc. I wasn't going to get in there, which was a blessing in disguise. So I ended up going down the communication route. And I happened to take some courses in conflict resolution, crisis communication, and negotiation. So, hey, this is really cool. After I graduated, I assumed I'd go and get some sales roles. I like being in sales. I figured I'd travel around the world, work at some tech company, be on a stage, evangelize technology, and sell lots of stuff. About a year and a half after of just like trying my hand at some different sales roles, I found a sales role, which happened to be in my hometown, coincidentally enough, for a negotiation, training, coaching, and consulting firm. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. It was paying like no money, but I don't have many bills. So I might as well, I probably should have got coached by you guys on my salary.
Maybe they wanted
that would have
to
been helpful.
Negotiate the compensation. They're like, this is test number 1.
Let me tell you, didn't work. But I tried my hand on it. I was like, I'll take a flyer, no big deal. Don't got a lot of bills. And I fell in love with the company. I fell in love with the topic. It absolutely hit the sweet spot for me. I would have gone into teaching if we actually paid teachers enough money in this country. So now I get to be a teacher in the business world on a skill set I'm really passionate about. So I found my dream job and I was there for 9 years, absolutely loved it. I had to smash through a bunch of ceilings along the way. But as I'm sure both of you know, especially coaching a lot of people on salary, if you join a company when you're 23, 24 years old, doesn't matter how successful you are. And I won multiple company-wide awards there. You're still 23, 24 years old. So I had some creative differences at the top and resigned, went to go work for another organization in the mentoring space, L&D enablement technology space, which was really cool. But I was also really lucky that after I resigned, I had a flood of phone calls saying, hey, Mark, we would love to just work with you. Wrote out my non-compete for a year and we opened up the doors to Aligned. And I've always had the dream of, if I had the keys to the castle, what would I do and how would I do it? And I wanted people, when thinking about negotiation, thinking about it more like a lifestyle activity. I don't care if you're a middle schooler. I don't care if you're a senior executive at a multi-billion-dollar company. Everyone needs to know these skills. So when they look at negotiation, I want them to think to themselves, I look like that. I can do that. So that's why all of our branding and all our methodology is about keeping it really simple. And we use tons of lifestyle photography. Obviously, you check out our stuff compared to all the other competitors in the industry that do, corporate level training. We are very, very, very different. Tone of voice is different. Imagery is different. Everything is different. So it really goes back to my passion for helping others and wanting them to see themselves successful. So we had to show them an example of negotiation that looks like that.
I really like your take on negotiations being a lifestyle activity, because a lot of people think, and I think this is also why people are scared of negotiations, because they feel like they're about to enter a very loaded conversation, or there's kind of a beginning or an end to when the negotiations actually happen. But you're reframing that negotiations are probably happening at all times. You should be thinking about it throughout as part of your lifestyle. And I think it bleeds into so many other things like sales, or even negotiating with your family members or friends. And everything is, at the end of the day, a negotiation. There's trying to figure out where you're aligned, pun intended.
Or just being creative in how to solve a problem or how to expand the pie, as we say. Tell us more about Align. How big is the team? How did you start it? It sounds like it's an educational program. Who is your ICP, ideal customer profile, and all that?
Yeah. So we've been around for the past several years now. There's about 15 of us now at this point. We work all over the world. Specifically, most of our work is done in training. So we do kind of fundamentals through advanced level coursework, supporting negotiators that really run the gamut, associate level all the way up to executive level. We're the preferred partner for all Berkshire Hathaway companies. We've worked with multiple sports teams like the Mets and the Twins. We just did a session for FIFA, as an example, in their offices in Miami. And we work about 100. Yeah, it was super, super cool. Big hedge funds, Citadel, et cetera, lots of big organizations we get, and we're fortunate enough to work with, and they trust us to train their people on how to negotiate. When we talk about negotiation, our golden rule is clear, assertive, and respectful. So the best negotiators in the world are super clear in their expectations. They're assertive in their needs. They have a spine, they have a backbone, and they're respectful. They're kind. They're nice twice at the end of the day. So your quick session on, what happens if you get disrespected in negotiation. We're very similar philosophies. We're very much of the be nice twice. You're going to show up nice, be respectful, be professional. They might have had a bad day. Give them another shot at this. But clarity, assertiveness, and respect, winning combo for a negotiator. So we take them through a bunch of different types of negotiation. We do lots of case study work, scenarios, video feedback, and really challenging their thinking on negotiation. And we've worked with thousands upon people over the last several years, and the overwhelming majority of individuals don't like negotiating, as I'm sure you know. They feel uncomfortable and anxious and nervous, and that kind of breaks my heart a little bit because it's a core element of human behavior is how to communicate through conflict. So our job is to really break down those barriers and help them see that they can be successful in each of these types of negotiations without changing their authentic self, but changing how they show up with their mindset and their strategy.
And in your work, where have you seen negotiations be the toughest for people? Is it in the workplace when they're negotiating with coworkers, or in a sales situation with clients, with their boss? What tends to be where people get most hung up around negotiations?
We ask this question a lot on our sessions, and it's usually like a 70-30 split when I ask the question of what's more challenging for you, internal negotiation versus external. About 70% of people will say internal negotiation is more challenging, because external, I can just cut ties with them. That might not be good for my job, obviously, but I can cut ties with them. I got to live with this person alongside me. So internal negotiation becomes really challenging. And we break down negotiation to 4 different types as well. So you have bargaining, trading, creating, and partnering. And based on a set of circumstances, we kind of get a mindset shift on each of those 4 different criteria. When you think about internal negotiation, you could look at it like a bargain. There's a finite amount of resources. The deals really aren't that complex internally, but you're interdependent on success and you're working with each other over the long term. So you have this kind of competing circumstances on what internal negotiation is. And if you have a culture where You don't promote based on culture fit and merit, and you just promote based on exposure or who can bang the table loud enough or who gets the highest numbers. You create a really competitive environment internally, and people don't trust each other enough to negotiate with authenticity. So you go behind people's backs and all that sort of stuff. So that's why we have all that kind of change in dynamic.
Can you give an example for each? Like, what's a bargain in negotiation?
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. So I'll take one small step back to take like 10 steps forward.
And for me to take one more step back, which is, who's your client? Not just that you said FIFA and very cool names, but is it sales teams essentially or not necessarily?
So not necessarily. We run across all roles in all industries: sales, procurement, marketing, HR, legal, finance, pretty much everybody. We've supported research scientists, which I have a funny story about that if you remind me later, all across the board. So anyone can benefit from negotiation. If you're only internally focused, you can benefit from, we have a video series, which is like the fundamentals, we have a fundamentals course, or if you're going out there and being your biggest deal makers, we have advanced level content for that. So we want to support everybody. That's our mission at the end of the day, support everybody.
Do we want to go into an example of a bargaining negotiation and all the other types?
So when we break down negotiation type, we look at two pieces of criteria. We look at the core deal itself. Why are we here today? We break that down into three components: the number of terms we're negotiating over, effectively how complex can we get, the number of alternatives in the marketplace for us and or for them, and the intent, one-off, reoccurring, fully embedded. Obviously, you can think about those three criteria. Fewer terms means less complexity, less creativity. You'll skew towards bargaining. More alternatives, saturated market, you'll skew towards bargaining. One-off intent, you skew towards bargaining. Obviously, the other end of the spectrum is lots of terms, very few alternatives, and longer intent, you'll skew towards partnering. But you don't negotiate in a vacuum, which means the second large piece of criteria is the precedent. What's your relationship like? How have we been conducting business over the short, medium, and long term? And what type of institutional relationship do we have? So what we say is a non-existent relationship or a combative relationship will peak at trading. I'll get into the examples of what for in a second. A incredibly trusting relationship never bargains. So irrelevant of what the circumstances are, we are here today, the precedent is like a multiplier or a gatekeeper in our ability to be collaborative. So with that, we have four different types. Bargaining typically shows up in personal negotiations or fast-paced transactional deals. So you're looking at price, volume, delivery time. I'm purchasing swag for a company event, that's a bargain. I'm buying a car, that's a bargain. Going to the flea market, that's a bargain. Who's taking the dog out in the morning? Truffle, bargain. All of those
You
are
went scared to
bargains.
this morning.
Amazing. All those are bargains.
Sorry, can you clarify what exactly you mean by bargain? I know you talked about the components, but is there a crisp way of summarizing it?
Bargaining negotiations are about hunting for as much value as possible when value is finite.
Okay, like a zero-sum game type of thing.
Correct. It's zero sum. What I get, you are likely losing.
Right.
Now, if I have three terms, maybe one, we can be a little complimentary, but at the end of the day, value is finite. It's usually price driven, usually quantitative. Those are bargains. When you jump into trading, obviously those circumstances I talk about shift to the right a little bit. They get a little bit bigger. Trading negotiations are still largely finite in value. They are largely quantitative in nature on the terms. However, now we can introduce some qualitative aspects, and there's going to be some give and take. So when we talk about a trading negotiation versus a bargaining negotiation, if a bargaining negotiation is I'm out there to hunt for value, a trading negotiation is I want to optimize value and tilt it in my favor. Because if I'm too heavy-handed when I have enough richness of complexity and maybe some reoccurring business, they're not going to look at me credibly. And they may even just laugh me out of the room or be pissed off or not want to work with me. So the best traders we've seen have that mindset of I'm going to optimize all of the available value here, but I still need to be assertive enough and heavy-handed enough to take the lion's share of it because it's finite.
Yeah, and what's an example in your world or in the world in general? I mean, obviously countries trading, but more specific, more relevant to us peasants.
Yeah, I get it. Trading negotiations are your most common B2B type across the board because they're largely quantitative in nature, handful of qualitative terms. So think software contract renewal, think you're purchasing a fleet of cars for a home cleaning services company. think about your purchasing merchandise as a retailer from a small scale CPG. These are trading negotiations. You want to optimize the best possible value flow to yourself, but you do need to make the deal rich enough for your counterparty to treat you credibly, lean in from time to time, and have a mutual level of professionalism and respect. Those are trading negotiations, the most common B2B type.
You have two more types, right? So
Yeah,
we'll
creating a partner. So creating, obviously, we've now removed the shackles of finite value. We can create more value than there was before. We're balancing plenty of terms, both quantitative and qualitative. These are your most strategic partnerships, most strategic relationships. Your 80-20, this is your 20, that you're open to challenging the status quo. You're open to breaking walkaway points. You're open to unconventional deal design. Most strategic relationships, highest trust relationships as well. Market's a lot smaller, contracts are a lot longer, you're much more interdependent on success. Then you dive into partnering. Partner negotiations, on the surface, they should be the epitome of collaboration. However, that's not always the case. So the classic example of a partner negotiation is a large corporation and a union. I think it's pretty easy for us to say, more often than not, the union doesn't trust the company doesn't trust the union. Yet, they're hyper complex. You're interdependent on success. It's not easy to turn over your entire workforce in a day. And their CBAs are 3, 5, 7 years. So the long-term contracts. But yet, they're not necessarily going to be as collaborative as a creating negotiation is because the stakes are different. The circumstances are different. The hidden agendas are different. The stakeholders are different. So yes, ideally, a partnering negotiation is the epitome of collaboration and complexity and creativity, but it's not always the case. Which is why when we talk with people about what it means to negotiate across these 4 different types, we want them to divorce their thinking from being a great partner to being in a partnering negotiation. Because you can be an excellent, reliable, charismatic, beautiful relationship partner, but we only ever trade with each other because our deals aren't super complex.
Got it. So it's the type of negotiation partner you are versus the type of negotiation deal that you have. You're differentiating that. Got it. And in a creative, what was it called? Creative negotiation?
Creating, yeah.
Creating. In a creating negotiation, what does that look like in the workplace? What's the type of creating negotiation?
Yeah, so like I said, take a trading negotiations, add an order of magnitude to it. So if I'm doing a software renewal or a software contract with a small to mid-market opportunity, likely going to be a trading negotiation. But if I'm doing a service contract or a software contract with my largest, most strategic, longest term partner, I'm going to be open to changing the payment terms. I'm going to be open to giving them value-added services that I wouldn't give anybody else. They should be open to giving me marketing opportunities and testimonials and shout outs and referrals. Those are creating negotiations. We're going to unlock different terms. We're going to challenge what we do traditionally in our T's and C's, and leadership is going to be excited to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that. That's my favorite kind. I'd like to think of every negotiation as a creating negotiation because I think of life as infinite games as opposed to finite games. Sometimes even if you run into someone middle of nowhere, you might still run into them. Life is long. And so I think of the negotiation, quote unquote, game as an infinite game. But I understand how sort of day to day in a business setting, you have to categorize them more succinctly. You had a follow-up?
Yeah, Mark, I love how clearly you break things down into what type of negotiation and the things that are happening within. So we have a lot of people who are in the professional workforce, whether they are negotiating job offers, but also internally, maybe amongst their team or other teams across the company. Let's say I'm one of those people, and then we can go into the example of I'm a business owner and I'm negotiating with a vendor or something. But in the case of an employee at a company, you also work with a team in a company of many teams. How do I start thinking about what are my first steps that I should do to go into a negotiation feeling prepared? Do I first think, okay, what type of negotiation is this? How do I open the discussion? And also, there's always a lot of things happening in the subtext. How should I be thinking about, am I giving away leverage secretly by saying this thing or that? I would love to hear the process that you advise your clients and students.
We start with our strategic framework first. So our strategic framework outlines 3 core pillars of negotiation that we all need to consider. And that's relationships, processes, and goals. So the relationships bucket, this is interpersonal communication. This is personality type. And at the end of the day, if you're friends with half the people you meet in the world. That's too many to invite to a barbecue at your house. So sometimes personalities don't mesh. This is trust. All of that sits in your relationships bucket. The overwhelming majority of the time, Garrett, I agree. Relationships are super important. You never know what you're going to run into in life. But sometimes, they don't matter all that much. But relationships is one of the first places we start. Then we think about process. Process is where we have our 4 types of negotiation. What type of mindset do I want to have? Am I bargaining? Am I hunting? Am I partnering? Am I climbing the mountain together? We also have our 4 phases of a negotiation as well. The first phase being preparation, then communication, proposal, and alignment. So am I following a structured process? Do I know what phase I'm in? And we have tools and frameworks and structures within process as well. And lastly is goals. In the goals bucket, do I understand what my goals are? Am I thinking singular value? Am I thinking total value? Am I thinking alternatives in the marketplace from my perspective and from theirs? What are our walkway points? What's the zone of potential agreement? And then we have an extra framework called zone. So what's my goal zone? What's my authorized zone? What's my why zone, which requires justification? And then, of course, we have our walkaways. So we go through those 3 strategic frameworks, relationships, processes, and goals, as we outline how I'm going to tackle this negotiation. I think the easiest ROI for someone just thinking about negotiation for the first time is goals. Where's the overlap here? What are my priorities and how would I rank them? They get inside their head for a second. What are their priorities? How would I rank them if I was them? Are there some complementary interests here that we can explore? What are some potential pitfalls and conflict points? If I think about goals first, one, I'll have a good framework on when I would walk away or predict maybe when they would walk away. So I can be within reason, even though I do want to anchor in different ways. And that can then set up how I communicate with them and my questioning strategy. But it's going to start with your goals. Quickest ROI, think about goals from your perspective and goals from their perspective.
Cool. And how do you download all that you know about negotiations into your clients and students? What do the sessions look like? How do you find the clients? Would love to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. So we knock them all out and put microchips in the back of their head.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we do too.
It's a new technology.
It's
It's
amazing.
super effective. Yeah.
We grow by a ton of word of mouth. I mean, our inbound funnel is phenomenal now. When people find Aligned, they immediately gravitate towards it. We have plenty of clients come to us and say, we've been searching for negotiation providers forever now. Nothing really clicked for us. We found you guys. Let's sign up. Like that quick. It's been rather dramatic. I'm honestly super grateful. I do have my dream job until I'm 65 when I take Drew Carey's job to be the host of The Price is Right. But outside of that, we get a lot of inbound opportunities. We run a lot of word of mouth. We have great net revenue retention. We've been around for 4 years now, supporting our clients. So we get a lot of growth that way. When we land and expand, we tend to do a pilot program. We usually start top of the pyramid, start with their executive team, ideally cross-functionally, but sometimes in one silo like procurement or sales. They have a proof of concept. They get a lot of ROI out of it. As you know, negotiation training in general, the ROI is usually instantaneous, and it's usually 5, 10, 50x, depending on how many decimal places they negotiate over. So the proof of concept tends to go really well. Our consultants are phenomenal. We create an incredibly safe environment that still challenges the participants through 1 to 2 day workshops, usually in person, sometimes online. We give them feedback, and we usually kind of cascade throughout the organization that way, training multiple teams in multiple ways through a graduated curriculum. So referral-based marketing is usually our easiest play, but our brand is so strong that when someone eventually finds us, they 85, 90% of the time end up going with us versus the competition.
Super cool. And I'm dying to hear about the research scientist.
Yeah, I was just thinking about
story.
that.
This is completely unrelated to negotiation, but it's still hilarious. So I was training a bunch of scientists in the food industry. This is years ago. And she was talking about how she met her husband. And I mean, obviously,
One of the scientists.
one of the scientists, how she met her husband. They also worked together. Shocker,
That's
right?
a joke. That's a joke.
I figured as much. So she classically trained using a bell her husband to salivate when dog food was in front of him.
Wow.
Like the Pavlovian dog.
100%. This is
So
when
she
they were dating.
Pavloved her husband.
Her husband. They both worked in the pet industry for food. And she found a clicker one day. She's like, I studied this forever and we're around dog food right now. I wonder if this actually works on humans. So over the course of 3 to 4 weeks, she would click once when they were having dinner or before they had dinner, then eventually twice. And after 3 to 4 weeks of doing that consistently around mealtime, she tried it in the room, subtly clicked the bell like 2 or 3 times, and he just starts literally salivating in the room saying like, you know, where's lunch? This actually smells really good. I don't know why it smells so good.
What?
Yeah. That's my research science.
Now I'm thinking about like, how can you integrate the Pavlovian bell into negotiation?
Yeah.
Ding, you want to give me more money.
Maybe with your manager, if you have a manager over several years, every time they give you more money, I don't know, you bring them chocolate. That would totally work on me.
I'm curious, what is one of the toughest negotiation misconceptions when you are doing your trainings that people are most surprised by, or something that you have to do a lot to really just dispel and turn their thinking on?
I hear this quote way more often than I would like to hear it. And that's, you know, you had a good negotiation when both parties feel a little bit unhappy.
Oh, I hate to hear that.
I hear it like a lot. I hear it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, how often you hear that, but I hear it a decent
Never.
amount. Yeah, no, I hear it a
I've
decent
heard
amount.
it. It should be when both sides feel happier than they normally would be. Yeah.
I agree. I feel like it's a bit of a cop out. I feel like it's an insecure negotiator decided to put that one out there because that person always left a bit unhappy.
Yeah.
And it just permeated through the marketplace. So that's one that I hate hearing.
Yeah.
And that we spend a lot of time thinking about, like, how do you give the other party satisfaction without giving away too much, right? You don't have to always give so much away to them, but they should feel pretty good about the deal. Like, hey, you know, I enjoyed that experience. That was a professional, respectful, clear and assertive experience for me. I felt like I got a good amount of value. I respect that. Even if I got nothing in the range, if I feel good about the experience and the process, that's what we're looking for. And more often than not, we found that people value the process more than the result, because you can get an exceptional result and feel miserable about the process the entire time. You still know if you're going to get a deal. So that's one.
I wanted to jump in on that very quickly.
Yeah.
So we live in San Francisco. A couple years ago, I managed to negotiate our rent down by 30%. But also because, thank you, but also because I just love negotiations. More than loving it, I feel like being an immigrant and a hustler, I have such a hustler mentality. I wanted to hustle for a better rent. It took me 2 months to go through that. I feel like it was a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory because obviously I spent a lot of time and effort into it. So net, I don't know if it was the best use of my time, but I did enjoy some of it.
But I love that you're highlighting this misconception that both parties should leave a little bit unhappy. I think that it constrains the possibility of what negotiation is into a compromise. But there are different ways to approach negotiations where you can work with the other side, think very collaboratively. What are each of the priorities? Is there a way for us to raise the entire sea level, to raise all the boats? So what's the phrase,
the
right?
pie.
Yeah, to expand the pie, not just figure out how to split up the pie. There definitely is this belief that negotiations are a give and take. I have to lose something, and then we'll all just land at some suboptimal level, but at least I got something. But that's definitely not the only way to think about it and what the end result can be.
Yeah, and we also think that if you can give things that don't really cost you, why not? In a job offer negotiation, if a company is like, we don't mind whenever you want to start, why not let the job applicant start whenever they want if you truly don't care?
Yeah, it's the basis for low cost, high value trades, right? So I'm going to give up something that's of low cost to get something of high value in return. That's like negotiation nirvana. But we also know it doesn't always work that way either. So if most individuals that you'll see out there in the world are uncomfortable with negotiation or feel like it's manipulative or it makes them anxious, it makes them nervous, they leak confidence, what are they going to do? They're going to focus on what they do understand, and that's usually quantitative terms like price and cost. So if I'm uncomfortable, I already feel like you're going to manipulate me because I don't like negotiation. I'm going to laser focus on finite value. So even if I aspirationally want to create value with you, either A, I don't trust you enough to do that, or B, I might not be experienced enough to know what it's like, or C, I might not be empowered enough to change the payment terms or give you marketing opportunities or whatever outside the box. So while I would love the world to create value all the time, there's a reason why trading is the most common negotiation type. It's because you only have so much wiggle room. It's largely quantitative, and there's a couple things we can trade. but it's not overly sophisticated. Creating and partnering is incredibly sophisticated and requires a depth of experience, empowerment, and confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about the process and negotiations. People's emotions and feelings get really wrapped up into it. They attach a lot of their self-worth or something, and they feel strongly about certain things, especially around process. I was reminded about that study that was done for colonoscopies where people will
Thinking
often
of that
yeah, I just
too.
thought of that too, where people will very often remember the very beginning and the very end of some experience, right? And so they did this study where they had a control group where normal colonoscopy, and then the test group where the colonoscopy was maybe 5 to 15 minutes longer. And the people who were in that test group felt that, oh, that was a much better experience than those who were in
Even
the...
though it was longer and the pain amount was the same as the control group, but
Yeah.
because the ending was not as painful,
Yeah.
they found it a better experience.
Yeah. So that's a very long-winded way of saying, what are some things or tips that you give to your students and clients around how to think about their mindset in how they're going into the negotiation to make sure that people feel like the process is going smoothly? Because one question we often get is, okay, I love that you have these strategies, these tactics, these are the things you should say, but I don't feel like that's actually me when I'm saying these tactics, or it feels very uncomfortable or awkward. Do you have any thoughts around how do you think about mindset?
Yeah. We talk about 4 different mindsets related to our 4 different types. So I can start there for a second. Then I'll talk about process and phases. So bargaining negotiations, you have to have the mindset of a bargainer or a hunter. I'm hunting for value. I'm hunting for pressure. I'm hunting for power. I have tons of alternatives. I need to go out there and go for it. But I'm not a hammer or an axe. I have to be more like an archer, much more precision. Trading negotiations, I need to think about balance and scales. Ideally, I can grow lots of that, but as a scale would, I want to tilt it in my favor. So trading negotiations about balance, but tilting. Creating negotiations, infinite possibilities. I love that. Kind of grow value out of a hat, challenge the status quo. Think about unconventional deal design and partner negotiations. You can't go it alone. So we think about climbing the mountain, checkpoints along the way, bring people with you. These are long, arduous, stressful negotiations that will stretch you. That's how we think about mindset. I need to be in the right mindset going into this. Then we think about 4 phases. So I need to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. The 4 phases we break down are preparation. So effectively an internal activity, internal alignment. And we say internal alignment is external power. I'm going through my goals, my relationships, what my process is going to be. Gets and gives, prioritization, preferences, assumptions, BATNAs, all walkaways, all that sort of stuff I think about during my preparation phase. So think of it like a checklist of going through all these things. Once you feel pretty good about how you view the deal, and you've gotten an idea or a feel or an estimate on how they could view the deal, I then need to test it. So your longest externally facing phase is your communication phase. And the communication phase is about setting clear expectations, positioning your priorities, so directionally letting them know what part of these terms are important to you and in which direction you need them to be while not making any promises or commitments. Demonstrating flexibility in areas of the deal that you are flexible on, but flexible is not free, in order to find where we can be complementary and where we might be in conflict. If you do that really well, you'll get a feel for how we can potentially grow value as well as where we're going to have natural conflict. And I can start to frame in the deal. So we talk a lot about anchoring and framing and reframing. So we can hopefully frame the terms into nice windows that are nice and tight. Again, non-committal still, but we've tightened the ranges on it. Maybe we're going to view this contract as a 3 to 5 year agreement. I can tighten that window. It's going to be 3 to 5. Then I can send my proposals over. Once the ranges have been tightened with clear, firm, assertive proposals spoken in absolute terms, ideally using conditional trading, we close the ranges, then we align across all the different terms, legal, contracts get signed out, red lines may get executed, sign the contract, and then we can move forward with our lives. But we also want to think about the mindset we're in for the type and also the goals we're trying to accomplish depending on the phase of the deal that we're in.
Very cool. I feel like a student right now.
I'm just like, I'm just hoovering all this, all this in.
I don't know if this was in the preparation document, but we should add it because I want to ask this of all our guests. What are some of your hot takes in negotiations?
I got a good one for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
So ready.
Preparation's overrated.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which part of preparation is overrated?
So you hear this quote get thrown around, like negotiations 90% preparation. Am I allowed to curse on your show? Is that possible?
Let's go for it.
I don't know about that. It's okay. I'll beep it or something.
Yeah, if we get down ranked, we can have another version. But yeah, go for it.
Let's not show your episode.
I won't curse on your show, but I think that's
take it or leave it. It's the deal.
It's a misleading quote. Look, preparation is super valuable. Obviously, we tell people prepare. We have amazing frameworks, amazing tools, etc. But in our opinion, preparation is the second most important thing you do because communication is more important. I've seen plenty of people have binders full of strategy from BCG, Bain, McKinsey, every single piece of analysis you can possibly have. 100% legitimacy to every single concession or request they're looking for, but they have no idea how to communicate it. And I've seen also plenty of people with no plan whatsoever, but they can dominate a room. They're charismatic. They have gravitas, and they can get you to trust them and be disarming, or they might intimidate and bully you when they have legitimate or perceived power, but that's communication. So yes, preparation is very valuable, but communication is where you make most of your money.
Very cool. So when you say preparation, because I imagine it's a lot of sorry, I just realized, did you just take yourself out of business? Because you prepare people for negotiations.
We teach them how to communicate through conflict. That's our core attribute here.
So you prepare them to communicate.
100%.
So when you think of preparation, are you thinking of, for example, your internal priorities and goals and things like that? Or do you think of phrasings or any other parts of preparation, which is not as important if you look at each component of preparation?
Yeah. Look, preparation in totality is something that everybody needs to do, right? I need to think about my alternatives, my goals, my process, my relationships, all those sort of things. When I say preparation is overrated, is I think people put too much emphasis on needing to prepare. And what happens is people get analysis paralysis, so they don't do it at all, or people over prepare to the point where they freak themselves out and they get into the room and they didn't practice executing it or talking about it, or maybe doing some breathing techniques to make sure what they say comes off in a way that's clear, assertive, and respectful. So I feel like people have the fallback of, oh, well, I didn't prepare enough, or, oh, I'm going to over prepare for this. And they don't spend enough time thinking about how do I ensure my intent lands in a way that they interpret it 100%. So when we think about preparation is like 40 to 50% of the game, whereas communication is 30-ish% of the game. So that gets your 80, 85% is preparation and communication, the rest being proposal and alignment. So I don't want people to necessarily not prepare, but I want them to think about more time on communicating externally the most. Like that's how we're actually going to bring this to life. How do I communicate?
Yeah, we have had a couple clients who sounded very robotic, for lack of a better word, and just so scripted. We're like, no, this is the subtext of what you're trying to say. Say it in your own words.
Yeah, and they were so focused on communicating the thing perfectly, but I think they were preparing themselves communicating perfectly, and it got to the point where there was communication analysis paralysis, where then they started overthinking, well, does this sound natural, all these things. And I think this is a really important point, because when you over prepare, you start stuffing into your priorities and what you're trying to get so much information and all these little details, then it probably just starts getting very hard to keep track of. And I can see how there's a very important balance of just understand what your priorities are, what you're looking to get from this, but you don't need to think through every little nitty-gritty thing, because you'll probably get lost in the details or start negotiating things that aren't that important to you and going down rabbit holes and stuff. So I definitely see that.
Yeah, and that's really the big piece here. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was like the big piece here, where throughout the communication phase, I'm refining my strategy and preparation, but I need to discover stuff. I need to know how to ask things. I need to be I need to know how to disarm a room if it's really tense and they view negotiation as manipulative. Like those are the core priorities I want people to focus on. So we don't do a lot of scripting over here. We think about messaging in the form of positioning and framing and anchoring, but you have to bring your authentic self or else you're not going to be perceived as credible.
Yeah, we also don't like scripting. I'm actually extremely bad at acting or remembering poems and lines. Yeah, but there are some words that we tell them do not use these or definitely use these and stuff like that. Any final interesting stories or hot takes? Any other hot takes? Anything else you want to leave us with?
Hot takes, I don't know. I think that was my big one. Is like,
Good one. No, that was a good
Oh,
one.
I did think of something. So a lot of people are scared to negotiate because they're worried that it may go bad or it's awkward or all that. But let's say I'm negotiating and I start to sense that it's not going well. Do you have any tips on what someone can do to try to recover or reset things?
yeah, I think the most obvious one is just to stop what you're doing and excuse yourself and
Step
take a
away
time
from
out.
the
I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think setting an agenda is a logical thing most people should do anyway before their conversations. That agenda should be tight and clean and succinct. And if something comes out of scope for you, there's nothing wrong with you to say, you know what? I'm gonna need some extra time to think about that. So I'll get back to you later today or tomorrow morning or the day after. Why don't we move off of that point? Let's focus on something else. But you know what happens, right? Sometimes you just start leaking confidence in the room.
So
and instead of
true.
spiraling, you got to cut the cord there and say, you know what? I really want to reflect upon that answer. Give me some time to think about it. I'll come back to you.
I love that. And that connects to this point that we discussed in a previous episode, which is there's a lot of misconceptions out there in terms of what power means and what it means to be powerful. And a lot of people think of pausing and stepping away or taking a break as like, I am losing power, but not necessarily. You could actually be gaining more power if you have the confidence to pause a conversation and get back to it later.
I totally agree. I do have one more hot take for you then.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. I love hot take.
So a lot of people will tell you in negotiation, hold your cards close, be very, very strategic about when you play your cards. Our philosophy is different. We want you to play your cards often, credibly, and assertively. Because if you can drive the conversation and get them to react to you and pull you off of your spot, you're much more likely to get your goals, assuming you spec'd out your goals well in the preparation phase. We want people to play their cards. So I hear a lot of, who would you like to go first? Them or you? Our perspective, 95+% of the time is you should be laying down the first anchor, give them something to react to instead of you reacting off of them. So we can talk about that topic if you'd like.
Yeah, this is where we disagree, but that's so interesting. If you have a few more minutes, we'd love to debate this point. Okay, so here's why we think you should never go first. It's because we can never know their cards, and whatever card you're laying down, it could be below the optimal solution, and you might get what you want, but you left value on the table, or you might be way above and you might turn them off, or they might think that a deal is not possible. What's your side of this?
How often we're talking specifically salary negotiations. That's like the lens we're looking at. This says, okay, how often do employers give some of your clients an offer that blows them away right off the gate?
I mean, a lot of our clients apply to Anthropic and OpenAI, so I'm not gonna lie, it's often.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. You're saying that if the other side goes first, it will probably not be an option that is very exciting to you. Is that what you're implying?
More often than not. Obviously, those are very, very unique situations.
Yeah.
And unique companies to support, which is amazing. It's huge credit to you guys. The chances of your counterparty giving you an offer that really blows you away right out of the gate is just not very high. And there is also a strong psychological anchoring effect on the first proposal delivered. And there's anchoring kind of all throughout the way. But if you hear that anchor, what most people will do, and I don't mean 50% most, I mean like 75, 80% most will do is say, oh, if they're there, I can't start here. So I'll start here instead. It'll give that unconscious concession, 5K, 10K, 15K from where they were planning to open up. And they did all their strategy around it. And now they're not going to do that because they heard a number that was different than their number. we always tell people, like, think about where they're going to open up to. Is it within your expectations? Not within your expectations, stick to your strategy. But there is a strong psychological anchoring effect on the first proposal delivered. And that's why we encourage people more often than not, trust your preparation, trust your gut, and see if you can take hold of that anchoring effect. It's super powerful in bargaining. It's very powerful in trading. Creating and partnering, it's a lot less of a thing because there's a lot more moving pieces.
That's very interesting. And I wonder if our approaches are because usually we support the underdog, quote unquote. And so the other party is a company, regardless whether big or small, or a business deal where the other side could be a venture capital firm. It's always we're supporting the quote unquote underdog. And so the other party almost always has better information than you do. And if they have better information, you're operating in the blind by putting in the first anchor. I personally, in this dynamic, and maybe it's different in your dynamics, I am not afraid of anchoring at all because you can just maneuver your way out of it. If it's so far off from what you were thinking, you can just come back to your thinking, outlining your logic and your reasons rather than fall for the anchoring in psychology, especially if you have people who are preparing you in the back. But yeah, curious, maybe that's why we have different approaches because maybe your deals are more even in information and power versus ours are actually very different power dynamics.
That's the 5%. So the 5% of the time, it may be in your best interest to not go first, is if they have an overwhelming amount more information than you do, or you have an overwhelming amount more information than them. You might want the other party to go first to get a data point. But I would still go back to, you need to trust your preparation in the sense of, if my expectation is they're going to open up at a $300,000 base, and they open up at 280 or 310, okay, that's about where I thought they would be. I'm going to stick to my strategy. If I think they're going to open up at a 300K base and they open up at 225, whoa, that's way outside of my expectations. I got to do something different here. So there's an element of that. I'm totally with you on the imbalance of information that does impact whether or not you're going to go first. So there's a piece of that as well. But I would also say, if you've done your preparation and research and you throw out that number and you get something close to it, you got something close to your goal anyway. So I would say maybe your preparation wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah, our goal with our clients is not to get necessarily what you're thinking, but it's to not leave value on the table. A lot of people come to us and they're like, I just want to hit this target and I'll be happy no matter what. We're happy to work with those clients, but I'm more excited to work with clients who the sky is the limit and we see where we land. And sometimes we land at ridiculous amounts. Our best performing client, we helped increase his total comp with equity over 4 years by 1.7 million. If what he had in mind was something much, much smaller, I don't know, not as exciting for us. Happy to work with them, but I like exploring the sky is the limit type of deals.
Of course, and it sounds like you have the client base for it, which is a huge congratulations to you guys. And you have great organizations that they're going to. So you have a really cool market that you can support where you can get creative like that. And the equity does carry a significant amount of weight. Like I get the salary phone call every now and then from people that I've
trained. Send them our way. We'll give you a referral bonus.
Yeah, from now on I will. But I had one person I was supporting that was going into like a head of revenue role for a sports organization. And he said, I want to hit this specific base pay. And we kind of unpacked a lot of it over the course of a couple of calls. And what we realized was base pay was like 4th on his list. And he wanted title, autonomy, contract, pay, equity. So everything was kind of just a little different than what he originally came to me with. And he was ecstatic with the offer that he got because we deprioritized base pay and prioritized the other things that actually were more valuable to him. So I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the first things we do with all our clients, just really understand their priorities, because a lot of times
most of our clients,
basically,
know
almost everyone,
what their priorities are.
Yeah, they come in, they're like, oh, I want to maximize cash. And then we really start pressure testing a lot of assumptions that they have about what they want. And then basically every single time they end up discovering something new about that really matters to them. Like, so you're okay taking a down level title if you still hit this number? And they're like, well, no, I still want to make sure that I'm kind of good career progression, so this happens all the time. And the really understanding your priorities is such a key piece.
Great. I feel like we can talk about negotiations all day. Maybe there will be a part 2 at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah, and Mark, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where can they find you?
alignnegotiation.com. You could also find us Align Negotiation on LinkedIn. We post consistently there. We work with tons of organizations. We have a graduated curriculum from a short form video series, 90 minutes, use all the exact same camera equipment as the company masterclass, all the way through advanced level training, including a brand new AI platform coming out in the next quarter.
Oh, that's cool. Did you train AI on your content, or what is the AI?
It's 100% fully trained on all of our frameworks and methodologies as if you're chatting with one of us
Yeah.
24/7.
Oh, okay. We have considered that, but we don't trust AI yet.
It's a completely it's a ground up. We're not just like customizing a GPT in chat GPT.
Yeah.
That's not. We're doing everything from the ground up, secure environment, enterprise level security, the whole shebang.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool.
So we'll wrap it up here. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Mark. This is an awesome conversation.
Thanks, Az. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.